A long time when mankind and animals used to live and do things together, there lived a man called Aluta. He lived with his wife and two children. His wife's name was Aku, and his children's names were Obi and Obia. Obi was a boy of 18 and senior to Obia, who was a girl and 2 years younger than him. They all lived together in their home in the village of Atunta. Obia was a very intelligent and hardworking girl. She was also beautiful. All the eligible bachelors usually got married twice in a year in that village. And at those times, it was like a great celebration for everyone in the village. Obia was the main target of most of the young men in Atunta. While the preparations for the ceremony was going on, the young men went to the girls' parents' homes to convince them that they were more eligible to marry their daughters than the others. In Atunta village, despite the fact that men hustle for the girls, on those marriage festival times, the girls to be married had the final right to choose the most eligible suitors that was right for them. Obia was getting prepared for that day, and several of the young men had already met with her father to convince him they were more suitable for her. Her mother was going about the ceremony in an extraordinary manner. She wanted to make the occasion a very grand one for her daughter. She bought expensive clothes for Obia and started dressing her well so that she could look better than the other girls. She kept on plaiting her hair as was suitable for the period. She wanted her daughter to be more beautiful than the other girls so that she could attract more of the better boys. Aluta, Obia's father, on his part, tried his best to check on the background of the eligible young men coming after his daughter. He found out that one out of them all in particular was more suitable and kept his eyes on that one. He felt that one was more eligible for his daughter. It was now left for his daughter to make the right choice, but he told his wife to keep talking to Obia about that very young guy so that she could make the right decision and keep it at the back of her mind when choosing her husband. While all these were going on, the tortoise was busy scheming for Obia. He wanted to seek for the hands of the girl in marriage, but he knew that her parents would not agree because he was very poor. So he started to think of what to do to outwit the other suitors. He always went to meet Obia's parents and tried his best to convince them that he was the most eligible of all the young men, of all the bachelors that were coming for a hand in marriage. He let them know that despite the fact that he was not rich, he loved their daughter and was ready to make her happy. But Obia's parents chased him out of their home. They knew the tortoise was lazy and had nothing that he could use to feed and take care of their only daughter. They could not tolerate his sight because of his dubious and trickish nature. They felt tortoise was a bad market for their daughter. The next day, the tortoise decided to try another method. He stayed in one corner of his house and thought it over. These people think they are very, very, very thoughtful. They want to save their daughter from my hands. But I'm interested in Obia and I must marry her no matter what. He went back to his house, and as he was thinking this day by day, he thought about this for 3 good days on how he would be able to win Obia's hand in marriage. After the third day, he came up with a solution and made a plan. The first plan was to watch the family of the girl, to observe the way they lived. The second plan was to use whatever strategy he found in their living style to work for himself, for his favor. So the next day, the tortoise started to observe the family. He hid somewhere in the girl's house and watched them from morning to evening. He was able to discover certain things. The time they woke up in the mornings, cooked their food, and ate their food. They kept it that way like a ritual, and he was able to cook up something from the way they lived their lives. The tortoise discovered the time they ate, and he noticed that Obia and her brother usually sat on the mat laid on the floor to eat, while her parents sat on the chair to eat the food that was placed on a table. One trick he had always been told by his late father was that if he wanted a girl to accept his hand in marriage, he had to try to make her feel like a woman first. And when you do that, he had said, she will run after you and never follow another man in her entire life. So, if that was true, he was going to try it out. He thought within him. How was he going to get to her to make her get to the point his father had told him about? He asked himself within. After all the observations, he picked on her plan and do something about it. The next day, he thought to himself. As early as cockcrow, he started digging a hole from his house to Obia's home. He dug the hole very deep, and for 2 days he continued digging it to the position Obia normally sat while eating at home. When he was through with the digging, he targeted the time the family was to have lunch and crept down the hole to where Obia was sitting and started tickling her bum bum. It was so titillating that Obia began to sing. Nne m bịa bene edegune. Nadu m bịa bene edegune. 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 Nne m bịa bene edegune. Nadu m bịa bene edegune. 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 The entire family, they were all surprised to hear their daughter singing while she was eating. And they taught her that it was bad manner to talk while eating. It was unusual, and her parents shouted at her to keep quiet and eat her food. That evening, when it was time for supper, the tortoise repeated the same thing. And finally, Obia got to know it was the tortoise that was doing the tickling she was feeling. She made up her mind that she was going to marry the tortoise because he made her feel good. Her parents did not even understand what was going on. Every mealtime, Tortoise kept tickling Obia, and she was enjoying it. The following day, all the girls were assembled and asked to make a choice of the men they had chosen. The girls started to choose different young men, and their parents were very happy at the reasonable people their children were choosing. When it got to Obia's turn, the most handsome and eligible young man of them all that had gone to see her father was thinking that Obia was going to choose him, and so a bright smile was on his face. But to his surprise, she pointed at the tortoise and chose him. Her parents, family, and the young man was completely disappointed. Since she had already chosen her husband to be, there was nothing anyone in the family could do about it. It was announced later that day that the following morning, all the guests were to assemble for the marriage ceremony to take place. That evening, while they were eating, the parents of Obia refused to even talk to her. They went to, they were all thinking, foolish girl, you will live with the tortoise and hungry will kill you. If you come back to this house and beg for food, nobody will answer you, will throw you out. They kept on saying. Obia did not care. She went and sat down and was eating. As she was eating, the tortoise also came back again to repeat what he used to do on Obia. And Obia started to sing. Nne mbia bene edegune. Nadu mbia bene edegune. 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 Nne mbia bene edegune. Nadu mbia bene edegune. 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 That song she was singing got her already furious parents angry. They stood up, grabbed her, and flung her out of her sitting position. And she landed at the far end of the room. They thought. They removed the mat and flung it away, and behold, there was the tortoise beneath the mat, shamefaced. They were all shocked. No wonder Obia had been singing and gesticulating each time she was eating. Tortoise was a bad and corrupt person, they thought. Woo! What a word. Quickly, they grabbed the tortoise and gave him a thorough beating, a beating of his life that almost killed him. And they later dragged him to the king's palace, and shamefully, he was subjected to a corner where judgment was pronounced on him. He was banished from the kingdom of Atunta, and the best suitor Obia's father had found more eligible got married to Obia. That is the end of the story. Please like, subscribe, and share the video to others who will love to listen to the stories I always create. Thanks for watching.